This is our second practice final, and as you can see, it's asking for the horizontal line, the equation of the horizontal line, right? We just talked about that. So what is that? The horizontal line is y is equal to, right? And it's the y coordinate. So y is equal to 5. Easy. So either you know it or you don't, right? Now for the second question, you can do it by hand, or you could probably type it into the calculator. That's up to you. I'll let you decide. But if you're going up to Math 6, you definitely need to do it by hand. Okay? Or you have to know how to do it by hand for sure. So I'm going to do it by hand here. I see that radical 14 is the same as radical 2 times radical 7. That's going to help because when I distribute radical 2, I get 2 radical 7. And then if I distribute for the radical 2 in the 5 radical 2, I get 5 times 2, right? So my answer is going to look like 2 radical 7 minus 10, which is A. Any questions with that? All right, well, number 3, I have to translate this, right? It says 15 subtracted from. So if you recall, subtracted from means you have some number and you're subtracting from that number of the 15, right? So what is that number? I have 3 times a number equals 44. So 3 times k, right? K represents the number. 3 times k, and then 15 is subtracted from 3k, is 44. So what is that? 3k minus 15 equals 44. That's D. All right. Let's scroll down here. Okay. Number 4. Simplify completely. This looks like addition subtraction. And to do that, we have to just distribute to get rid of the parentheses, right? Okay, let's start with that. We have 16x squared minus 14x plus 14, right? I know we've been doing it straight across. This would be plus 9x squared plus 5x minus 5. But you could actually write them vertically too if you want to save space and also um, line up the proper like terms together. So this plus is 9x squared. So this is plus 9x squared plus 5x minus 5. You see that? You can do it vertically and I get 25x squared. This is minus 9x and this is plus 9. Where do we see that? A. Any questions there? Okay, number 5. We just did a problem like that, right? Okay, so let's see here. We can say this is x1, y1, x2, y2. I know slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So I can do 13 minus negative 31 over 4 minus negative 7. Okay, so we can calculate this. This is 13 plus 31, so that gives me 44 over 4 plus 7 is 11. 44 over 11 equals 4. So we calculated slope to be 4. So right off the bat, I can tell that these are incorrect because these have slope of negative 4, which is not what we're looking for, right? Let's calculate the y-intercept next. So now we can plug it in and solve for y equals mx plus b, right? All right, so just take one of the ordered pairs. I'll pick the second one because that looks like it's a little bit easier to work with. So y is 13 is equal to slope we just calculated is 4 times x is 4 plus b. So I have 13 is equal to 16 plus b. Now I can subtract 16 to both sides, so I get negative 3 is equal to b. So now I can see answer choice B is the correct answer. Right? We have y is equal to, m is 4, b is negative 3. Any questions? All right, if you have any questions, please type it out in chat, and I will gladly go over it. Let me scroll down here. Okay, the last two on the page. Simplify the radical. This, I would recommend just typing it into your calculator, and of course, knowing it by hand is important, especially for those going to Math 6. So for 5 radical 75, that's 5 times radical 25 times radical 3, right? So this is 5 times radical 3 is 25 radical 3, right? And then for 3, so minus 3 radical 12, right? So I know this is minus 3 times radical 4 times radical 3. So that's minus 3 times 2 radical 3. So this is minus 6 radical 3, right? So I have 25. Let me write it over here. Radical 3 minus 6 radical 3. They're like radicals. Therefore, it is 19 radical 3, right? And as we just talked about earlier, the final exam, you have about 4 minutes per question. So yeah, time is of the essence. Make sure you can do these problems quickly, right? And double check on calculators. All right. Wow, it's like very cold today. Which of the following is a factor of the polynomial? So I see 4 terms here. This reminds me of a factor by grouping problem, right? So in the first group, the first 2, right? I see that there's a GCF of a 5c. So let me factor 5c out, and I get 2x plus 3y. In the second group, I see that the leading coefficient is negative. Therefore, I have to factor a negative out. Don't forget that, okay? That's a common mistake that'll lead to people getting stuck when they factor, all right? So I see that there's a negative 6d. 6d. So when I factor that out, I have 2x plus 3y. Now I see the common binomial factor here is 2x plus 3y, and the other factor is 5c minus 6d. So I don't see 2x plus 3y, but I do see a 5c minus 6d over there. Any questions? All right, so we're flying through these. I know when you do it yourselves, it's going to take a little longer, but practice, right? Practice makes perfect, right? Or perfect practice makes perfect, right? You don't want to be practicing the wrong thing, right? Or practicing it the wrong way, I should say. Otherwise, you're like, learning a bad habit. All right, let's continue. We have factoring by a quadratic here, right? This polynomial is a quadratic. All right, so I told you the different ways we can factor, right? Most people are probably comfortable with the AC method of factoring that we've done in class. But I do hope that one day, if you take more math classes, that you can factor using that trial and error method that I showed you, right? So I'll do both ways here, but the trial and error method is this. You take the factor, so it's a binomial times some other binomial. In the first factor of the binomial, 3x squared, right? You have to find the product of 3x squared, and you can only get that by doing 3x times x, right? Now the second term of each has to be the product of this negative 20. So I know one is positive, the other is negative, right? So the factors of 20 in general, I know, are like 1 and 20, right? 2, 10, 4, and 5. So I can kind of like line them up in here. And let's say I did 1 and 20, right? So I know that the outer plus the inner products have to add up to this positive 11x. So I see that this has no way of, this is 3x times 20 is 60x and 1x. There's no way, right? That'll somehow add up to 11 even if one is negative. So I know this first one is not right. So I'm going to move on to the second one, 2 and 10. Or you could actually reverse the order as well, and that'll make a big difference as well. But let's do 2 and 10, right? Or 10 and 2. Let's see what we get. So the outer for the first one will be 30x and 2x. So that doesn't work. So if I reverse them, I get 6x and 10x. That doesn't work either, right? There's no way I can have a positive and negative that add up to 11x there. So that's not it. Let's do 4 and 5. So if I put 4 here, I get 15x and 4x. So look at that. If the 4x were negative, right, that means this adds up to 11x. So that means the 5 has to be positive to get positive 15x, and the 4 has to be negative to get negative 4x. Okay, does that make sense? So I have my factors here, 3x minus 4, x plus 5. So 3x minus 4, I don't see that, but I do see x plus 5 right there. Any questions? Okay, now the AC method of doing this problem, I'll do it over here on the right side. The AC method was this, right? A is equal to 3, B is equal to 11, C is equal to negative 20. So A times C, that's 3 times negative 20, equals negative 60. B is equal to 11. This is the sum of the factors of AC has to add up to 11. The sum of AC. So let's see here. So if I had 1 and 60, that doesn't work. 2, 30, 3, 10, 4, and 5, sorry, no, not 4. Let me see here. 4 and 15, and then 5 and 12, and 6 and 10. So those are all the possible factors, right? One of them has to be negative, but since the sum has to be positive 11, all the smaller factors should be negative. Okay? And the larger factors are positive. Okay, so as you can see, negative 4 and 15 add up to 11. So this is the correct pair to use. And then our original expression was 3x squared plus 11x minus 20. It's going to replace the middle term, the 11x, with negative 4x plus 15x. So 3x squared minus 4x plus 15x minus 20. Right? So now we can factor by grouping. In the first group, we have x. Factor the x out, we have 3x minus 4. In the second group, we have 5, right? Positive 5. And we get 3x minus 4 as well. So the binomial factor, common factor here is 3x minus 4. And the other factor is x plus 5. So that's the AC way of factoring that we learned a while back. Okay. So either way you do it, I mean, it doesn't matter which way, you'll get the same answers. Okay, number 9, find the slope and y-intercept for the graph of the equation here. So we just have to convert this into slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. So solve for y. So I'm going to add 6 to both sides. So I have negative 7y is equal to 6x minus 14. And then divide every term by negative 7. So I get y is equal to negative 6/7 times x plus 2. Right? So I get my slope is negative 6/7 and my y-intercept is 0, positive 2. So that gives me C as the correct answer. Any questions there? All right. Well, let's move on then. We have to simplify this, and I'm looking to see if there's parentheses and an exponent outside, and it only seems to affect the y here, right? Okay, so let's do this. This fifth power out here doesn't affect the x or the 40. So I can just simplify the 40 into 2. So this is 20. And then the x's, right? You have x to the 6 over x to the negative 6 is equal to what? X to the 6 minus negative 6, which is x to the positive 12. Right? Everyone got that? So I already know B is wrong because 40 over 2 has to be 20, right? And I already know that A is wrong and C is wrong because x has to be to the 12th power. So I already know right now just by process of elimination that D is the correct answer, but we should continue and see, right? So y to the 7th to the 5th power is y to the 7 times 5 is 35. Then we have y to the 35th over y to the negative 21, which is y to the 35th minus negative 21. So that becomes y to the 35 plus 21 is 56. So what's our final answer? 20x squared y to the 56 power. Not bad, huh? All right. Look at the next one, number 11. I talked about this the other day, right? We have to basically multiply everything by the LCD, right? Or you could do this on your number solver function on the calculator. But what's the LCD? The LCD for 2, 20, and 5 is 20. So let's sorry, 1 second here. Just gotta get this off my screen. Okay, so multiply every single number, or every term I should say, by this LCD of 20. What happens? So I have negative half times 20, right? So times 20, and then I have x over 20 times 20 over 1, and then minus 2/5 times 20 over 1. This is distributive property right here, right? So 20 over 1. So what is this? This is equal to negative 10 is equal to x minus, and what is this? 8. Does everyone see that? Right? This is 10. Remember how to multiply fractions? Cancel out first, so you got negative 10. The 20s cancel out, so you just get x. And then the 5 cancels out into this, and you get a 4. So negative 2 times 4 is negative 8. Does that make sense? So now I add both sides 8, right? So I get negative 2 is equal to x. And that is answer C. Any questions? Okay. All right. Number 12 is a system again. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. Oh, no. Let me recircle that. Okay. Let me scroll down again. We have a system. Before I start solving the system, I like to see which might be the easiest way to solve the system, right? Is it through the addition elimination method or through substitution? And I can see right here that my coefficients for y are both -1. So I think I'm going to just multiply one of these by a negative. So look at what happens if I multiply both sides here by a -1 here. So this would become a positive x plus y is equal to -5. Do you agree with that? And the first equation is remaining the same, and I get that. So now if I add these, the y's are eliminated. I have 4x is equal to -4, right? So therefore x is equal to -1. So now I can substitute x back into one of the equations and solve, right? So let's say I did it into the first equation. So I get -1 minus y is equal to 5. So that means 1 minus y is equal to 5. Subtract 1, I get -y is equal to 4. Therefore, y is equal to -4. So the answer choice is B. Now, here's the other way that's also very easy. I see that all the answer choices are y, right? So I'm going to eliminate x. The way I do that is multiply the second equation by +3. Now, why did I do that? Because in the first equation, I have the coefficient of x is 3. So if I have the second equation as the coefficient of -3, right, wouldn't that eliminate x's? So this is the second equation when I multiply by the 3, right? And the first equation was 3x minus y is equal to 1. So look at that. If I add these, the x's cancel out. I get -4y is equal to 16. Divide by -4, and I get y is equal to -4. Same answer, right? All right, number 13. Seems like this one is very similar to the one we just did in the previous test, right? So we do the cover up method. Remember that, right? If you remember the cover up method, that means you're setting x is equal to 0 and solve for y, right? So you got -15 times 0 plus 6y is equal to 30. So that means 6y is equal to 30. Divide by 6, right? We get y is equal to 5. So my ordered pair here is 0, 5. And I can see A is wrong already. There's no 0, 5. B is wrong. There's no 0, 5. So it's either C or D. Next, I make y equals 0 and solve for x. So I have 15x, -15x, sorry, plus 6 times 0 equals 30. So -15x equals +30. Divide by -15, and we get x is equal to -2. That means my ordered pair is -2, 0. Where do I see -2, 0? Right here. The answer choice D. Any questions? All right, so you're getting the hang of these problems, right? Okay, moving on. Okay, so we have the factor. I see GCF. Remember, always look for a GCF first, right? That way, it'll make your life a little easier. So I see a GCF of 4y. So let's factor that out. So I got this is equal to 4y, and then you get 9x squared minus 4y squared. Okay, don't put this as your final answer. This is a difference of squares right here. So this is also equal to 4y times 3x plus 2y and 3x minus 2y. Does that make sense? So answer C is the correct answer. It would not be A. If you put A, you would have gotten it wrong. Alright, number 15. We have to distribute, right? This 2, we get negative 8 plus 6x is equal to 2x plus 16. So this is a one variable linear equation, so I need to have all the x's to the left and non-x's to the right. So I'm going to subtract the 2x here, and I get 4x, and I'm going to add this 8 to both sides. And I get 16 plus 8 is 24. Divide both sides by 4, you get x is equal to 6. Answer B. Let's move on. Not many left here. Alright, number 16. Oh, sorry. 16. Literal equation. We're solving for y, right? I see y is on the right hand side, so I need to get y by itself. Okay? So I'm going to subtract this 9x. Z minus 9x is equal to 5y, and divide both sides by 5. So I see already C is the answer here, right? And even if you were to separate these, right, this would be y is equal to z over 5 minus 9/5 x. And I don't see that anywhere else here. So it's not A, right? It looks almost similar, but it's not. Okay, number 17, it says find all solutions. So you could put this into your poly solver on the calculator. But you should know how to do it by hand, right? So I see it's a quadratic. I'm going to factor the GCF. That's a negative 3x. Okay, and then when you factor that out, I have positive x plus 5 is equal to 0. Then you set every factor equal to 0. So negative 3x is a factor, and x plus 5 is another factor. So that means x is equal to 0 here, or x is equal to negative 5. So the correct solution would be C. Okay, number 18. For number 18, we have to substitute. So this is b squared times a plus a times b plus a squared. They're always going to give you these negative numbers, so be careful. So this is 9 times negative 3 is negative 27 plus negative 3 times 3 is negative 9. So this is just minus 9 plus negative 3 squared would be positive 9. So this is equal to negative 27. Any questions with that? All right, find the slope. We talked about how to do these, right? When they give you the graph, I see that 0, 2 is a point, and this doesn't look like a clear point. The next clear point I see is 5, 0. So I count down to right 5. So down to right 5. Remember, this is our change in y over change in x is our slope, right? So down 2 over 5, that's D. All right, moving on here. Let's see. All right, last 2 pages. Let's do this. Another very common question here with the radicals. You can do this either by hand or on the calculator, that's up to you. But if you did it by hand, you should know this is using our rules for radicals. It can be written as one radical, right? 7 times 28 over 2. And you know, as a fraction, you could cancel out the 2 here into the 28 and you get 14, right? So now it's 7 times 14, right? Or 7 times 7 times 2. 14 is 7 times 2. So now you get 7 radical 2, right? I could do this problem, if you can do it quickly by hand like that, it's like not worth even doing on the calculator, but obviously the calculator, if you type it in correctly, you won't make a mistake. Alright, let's try 21. So you're taking a polynomial, dividing it by a monomial. So you divide every term in the numerator by negative 3x to the fourth. So in the end, you have something that looks like this. Well, not in the end, but as your intermediate step here, right? So what is this? This is 4x to the 7th, right? And then negative 6 over negative 3 is positive 2x to the 3rd, and minus 5. The x's cancel out. So what is that? It's, answer B. Okay, be careful when you're selecting your answers. Right, there's no partial credit. It's either all right or all wrong. Alright, so let's try this. Pythagorean theorem again, right? This is a right triangle. Therefore, we can say the leg squared plus the other leg squared is equal to hypotenuse squared, right? And then we can square root both sides and only take the positive case because it's a length, and lengths are positive. So I have 36 plus 81. That's what, 115? And I'm sorry, 117. So radical 117. We could probably simplify that. That's what, 9 times 13. So this is radical 9 times radical 13 is equal to 3 radical 13 is C. That you just throw into your calculator. Alright, 23. We have to multiply, distributive property. So 4x times x squared is 4x cubed. 4x times negative 3x is minus 12x squared. And plus 12x. Right? We move on to the negative 5. So I can write it in, like I said, I could write it straight across, but a little thing to do when you want to organize, right? You can do like this, vertically, like I said before. 5 minus 5x squared plus 15x, and then minus 15 over here, and add vertically. So we have 4x cubed minus 17x squared plus 17x minus 15. Let's see, where's that? Plus, oh, this is 27, my mistake. Making little mistakes here. 27x, so let's see, where is that? 4x cubed minus 17x, this is it, B. Alright. Okay, last page here, and we're done for today. Okay, so one variable linear inequality, we have to solve for x, right? So let me write this down on the right hand side here. So let's bring the x to the left hand side. So subtract 8. So we get negative 13x minus 6 greater than 46. Then to isolate x, we add 6 to both sides. So we got negative 13x is greater than 52, right? And then to solve for x, we can divide by the coefficient negative 13. And when you divide by a negative, the inequality sign flips, right? So this greater than becomes a less than symbol. and we get negative 4. So what does that look like? On a number line, if you had negative 4 here, it's an open circle because it's not equal to, and less than is to the left. So we have answer choice A. Any questions with that problem? All right, well, the last problem here, we have to simplify using the laws of exponents. So that means no negative exponents allowed, right? So I'm going to combine the x's first. So x to the negative 4th times x to the negative 3 times x to the negative 5th. So this is, if I add these up, right, like this, using our law of exponents, this is what, negative 7 minus 5, negative 12, right? So I have negative 8, y to the 15th, and since x is a negative, I move it down to the denominator and make it, positive 12. And where is that? That is answer choice A. Okay, and we just took the entire final exam in about 36 minutes. So I know it's not going to happen like that, but as you keep practicing the other practice finals, your speed will improve. You just want to make sure you average about 4 minutes or less on the problems each.